What's up, our wonderful people? Welcome to the Express Show Live right here. We do hope that everyone is doing fantastic and that you are excited to be with us on the show. Just as we are happy to have you on the show, and I'm hoping that your Wednesdays are coming along just fine. In case you want to connect with us, please make sure you find us on our socials. We are Pumzi Africa on Facebook, Pumzi Africa on Twitter, Pumzi Africa on YouTube, and whatever other different platforms you might be on. Just search for Pumzi Africa, and you will find us right there, ready to engage with you and ready to have a wonderful conversation and also share with you some updates regarding music and entertainment right here on the Express Show. My name is Spikes, and today we are looking forward to having a wonderful show. We do have the one and only Rumbi, who is a Kenyan artist based in South Africa. We shall be having an opportunity to get to know, about his musical journey and also getting to know about his current and upcoming project right here on the Express Show. So feel free to get to vibe with us and also connect with us on our different social media platforms. As I did say, we just played your jam by Rumbi himself. The name of the jam is known as See Me. That is the remix for the same, and I hope that you're loving that particular one. So welcome to the show, Mr. Rumbi. How are you doing?
I'm good, my man. I'm glad to be here. Very excited, very excited.
I'm excited to have you on the show as well, and I'm looking forward to having an engaging conversation about music. And of course, you being a Kenyan artist based in South Africa, I know that is an exciting journey, and maybe perhaps even some of our listeners would like to know how the journey is. Like, many people would love the opportunity for them to tour and go to South Africa. And I'm hoping that maybe perhaps you would get to engage us on how that particular one got to happen and how that has been. But nonetheless, for those that are joining us for the very first time, like I did say, this is a show about music, and this is a show where we can get to converse and just get to know our artists and discover new talent, and also not just new talent, but even established talent. So, Michael, I would just like to engage you. Maybe perhaps before we get to the conversation, I would just like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. How would you like to introduce yourself?
Let me see. So, hi everyone. I'm very glad to be here. So excited to be on the show. My name is
Mm,
M. Rumbi. I'm a songwriter, producer, and curator.
yeah,
Originally from Nairobi, Kenya. Currently based in
yeah.
South Africa, Bloemfontein. And I deal in all types of sounds. So you might find me making alternative R&B, indie pop, indie rock. If it's music, then it's something I make. Been doing it for I think maybe 7 years now. It's been a while.
7 years?
I think so.
That's quite a long time. And I think for a seasoned artist as you, I think you're also multi-talented. You're an artist, you're a producer, a songwriter, and I think you wear many hats, which is quite interesting. And maybe perhaps I would just like to ask you, when did you discover your passion for music?
I think it really hit me in 2015, 2014, just
Yeah,
before I went to varsity. So I did varsity in Strathmore. And just before I did it, I was
yeah,
like, oh, what do I really want to do? I wanted to do music. And
yeah,
unfortunately, I was unable to pursue music in the way I wanted to. But then I started picking up like the piano. I started learning how to use FL. I started getting better at my guitar. And I just put in moves to make music happen. And, I just kept on falling in love with it. I kept on giving to it. I kept on giving back to it.
yeah. That's quite interesting. I didn't know you were Strathmore alumni, and I have a couple of friends who are from Strathmore, and that's a great, great university right there. With so many talents. I know people who are doing business and economics and the courses like that.
Mm.
Wouldn't maybe perhaps diverge and know what course you're pursuing at Strathmore, because I know it's excellent in economics and things like that.
I was
Were
doing
you pursuing?
I was doing a
Yeah,
Bachelor of Science, Financial Economics.
yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I didn't get to finish. I moved, I think, a year or two before I could finish my degree. I had to move to South Africa, and then I continued it here.
Yeah, well, that's quite interesting. And for the city that you are in, or for the where you're based in South Africa, that's I couldn't get the pronunciation of that particular place. Is it it's
Bloemfontein.
Bloemfontein? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's quite.
It's a very
Let me get.
interesting name. It's an Afrikaans name.
It's an Afrikaans name, yeah. I was just wondering to
Yes.
myself. I've never heard about blowing up, blowing fountain, and I was just wondering now. Where is
Bloemfontein.
that particular place? Is it closer to Johannesburg? But I think let's Google do the work for me.
Yeah.
Where is
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
closer to Johannesburg, but it is in central South Africa.
Oh, okay, that's WhatsApp. And
Yeah.
of course, when we talk about the music that you do, I would just like maybe perhaps to understand or inquire from you, how do you label your genre of music? What genre of music do you do?
I think the best label would be indie. If you
Yeah,
want to get more specific, you can say indie soul, indie
yeah,
R&B.
yeah,
But at this point, I feel like I'm in a point of like discovery. So I make hip hop still. I make alternative R&B. I
yeah,
made make a indie folk song. If I
yeah.
enjoy it, I want to make it.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite interesting because some people I have had some people say, "Oh, I don't want to categorize my music because that locks me into a particular genre." You know, I'm an artist without borders. You know, someone like what do you call these artists? Like Andre 3000. Recently, people
Yeah,
were waiting for an album from him, and people were hoping that maybe that would be a hip hop album, one of the best hip hop albums of this particular year. Then he came out with a blues album, an instrument album, and that was
yeah,
quite unique. But anyhow, I would just like to ask you, maybe perhaps as we proceed, when tell us a little bit about your very first project. If you remember the very first project or the very first time you hit the studio, do you
yeah.
have a memory of that particular project and how did it go for you the very first time you went to studio?
So my very first project was I think a 4-track EP called 4.3K, and it was
4.3.
called 4.3K because it's 4,300 kilometers between Bloemfontein and Nairobi, and
Oh, okay.
we recorded it like with our phones. It was very rough, but
Yeah.
yeah, that was my first official release back in 2017.
That's
It was really fun.
that that's quite interesting because some people have had some of the best songs. I even been recording with the phone. I think there was a song known as "Pull Up with a Stick." I think it was recorded with the phone by some artist. I don't quite remember the name. But anyhow, I'd just like to ask you as we proceed with our conversation for today, and maybe perhaps for you, how has the experience been for you as let me not say an outsider, but being a Kenyan in South Africa? How has your music been received right here in Nairobi and also in South Africa? I understand some people would say, as an outsider, people might really not know what to expect from you. Or how has your music been received by the people of South Africa and even Kenyans, by Kenyans?
Well, starting with Kenya, I think there's a positive and growing reception to it.
Yeah,
My music can be a bit more niche sometimes,
yeah,
so it takes a while before it finds a listener. But I
yeah,
can see it's a growing fan base.
yeah,
The response has not been as big in
yeah,
South Africa,
yeah,
but that is like more of on the ground. So I am getting more airplay in South Africa,
yeah,
but more people are listening to me on Spotify in Kenya.
yeah, yeah,
So it's a different type of reception. I'm getting a better commercial reception on this side, but I'm
yeah,
getting a more organic reception now
yeah.
back home.
So that's I think you have to forge a balance because you have your fans all over. I think the world because right now people on digital music streaming platforms, people have an opportunity to discover artists from anywhere. It might be an artist from Iceland, there might be an artist from Nairobi, it might be an artist from anywhere, and that is
There's
the
so
best
much
thing
music
about
available now.
yeah, so much music available on those streaming platforms: Spotify, AudioMac, Boomplay, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, all those are the different streaming platforms. But let me get back to a little bit of your at the start of your journey. I would just like to ask you, when you're growing up, who were some of the people that you looked up to for inspiration, or the people who inspired you to get into music? Who were some of these people?
So I got into music very late. So by the time I did start doing it, I think I had more of like an idea of what my taste was. But the
Mm,
biggest influences were I know Tom Mish. I
mm,
remember listening
yeah,
to Beat Tape 1 and Beat Tape 2. It really just changed the way I look at music.
mm,
Frank Ocean, because I really enjoyed his songwriting.
mm,
And I would say there's an artist from New Zealand.
mm,
He's currently based in the UK
mm.
called Jordan Rakai.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started with
I
a very neo soul hip hop introduction. That's why I liked. That's why I started like with the production and everything.
Oh, okay, that's quite interesting. I don't know of Frank Ocean and his project like Channel Orange, but the other
Mm.
artist from New Zealand, I would maybe perhaps check him out on Spotify or on his different platforms. So I think your influence is just somewhere where for someone like Frank Ocean, I think he also is quite experimental with his music. When people
Mm.
listen to what Frank Ocean was doing, some people were just wondering what direction is this music taking. But I think he keeps on pushing new boundaries. and exploring his sound. You know, with the likes of other artists like Childish Gambino, I think he's also a guy who likes to stretch the limits. I
Yeah,
think
and I'm a
someone
big
else
Childish
like
Gambino fan. Yeah,
yeah,
a big.
Gambino is also doing the most. I think also someone like Saint John. Saint John is also doing wonderful in terms of his music. But let me get back to you and let me also get to ask you when it comes to the perception or the general perception of your sound. You know, when you're doing your music, have you received any kind of what kind of reception have you received? Have you received any kind of like misperception about your sound or people not getting to understand your sound? Because, but as you say, as an experimental artist, some people might be like,
Yeah.
and how have you handled that? Any misperception about your sound?
I think the most common misperception is who I am. So a lot of people think M Rumbi is a lady because I use a
Yeah,
lot of female vocalists. I'm a songwriter, so it's
yeah,
normally a quick like, "Oh, I thought you were," and I'm like, "Oh no, no, I'm actually yeah." So that's the biggest one. It doesn't really bother me. I can understand where it comes from listening to my music. The only other one is that some people call my music white people music. I don't like that phrase. I think my music is African music because I'm
yeah,
African. The influences can be from other places, but I've
mm,
lived most of my life on this continent.
yeah.
So even with that one, I'm more of like, unless I want to go with the joke, I'm like, it's African music because I'm
Mm.
African.
Oh, okay, that's quite interesting. I actually did notice that as well because I do have some friends, even though they are not from Kenya. I have
Mm.
two friends from Zimbabwe, and one of them is known as Rumbi Muzopa. So her short
Yeah.
form, the short form of Rumbi it's Rumbi. So we
Oh.
used to call her Rumbi, and there's also another lady called Rumbi. So some of them might be that misperception about the name Rumbi. It might be misconstrued for Rumbi or something else.
It is a female name in Zimbabwe and Zambia. Now that you mention it, yeah.
Yes, that is why maybe perhaps some people might confuse that for that particular name. But anyhow,
Yeah.
moving a little bit fast forward, I want to know about you had a goal. I understand you had a goal from your social because I do follow your socials, and I understand you had a goal this particular year to produce so many songs. You know, you have a schedule where you produce, I believe, is it two songs per month or is it a song per month? Was it a
So
song
it's
per month?
about 2 songs per month, one song every second week. Yeah.
One song every second week. How has that been working for you in 2023?
It has been ups
Mm,
and downs,
mm,
definitely. But I think it's one of the best things I did for like my career and for myself as an artist. I'm about
mm,
to finish it. I'm dropping the 25th song
mm,
this Friday, and then
mm,
I'm gonna drop the 26th song as an EP 2 weeks from
mm.
now, and then that's the whole project. I
Okay.
feel like I have a better understanding of how to release music,
Mm,
the back end, the front end,
mm,
and yeah, it's been difficult. The times we
mm.
had to put a song together in like a month, and the other
Yeah.
times where we really had space to plan it out. And I've
Mm,
been able to manage both, so I'm happy.
mm. So I think for some artists, I think that is quite ambitious, you know, because if you're dropping consistency, because I understand this craft has to do with consistency. Anything has to do with
Yeah,
consistency. You're looking for success. But I think that's quite ambitious. You know, dropping two songs every month for lazy artists, I know you're quite hardworking, but for lazy artists, it would be it would be very, very difficult for anyone really trying to hack, you know, get two songs per month. You know, people would be
sure.
like, that's too much. But anyhow, I love that particular kind of a consistency, and I would say you're doing quite a lot. But you have worked with many artists, and I would just like to know at this particular point, could you tell us a little bit about some of the artists and some of the producers that you have worked with, either here in Kenya or in South Africa?
So I have predominantly worked with a lot of Kenyan artists. I think most of my music you will hear a particular vocalist called Nawekulo. She's a
Mm,
singer-songwriter that I met in Strathmore. We studied
yeah,
together for a bit, and I
mm,
think I released my first song on Spotify with her called Little
mm,
Bird. So I think it's one of the few songs that, or the first few songs that got like a big uptake.
yeah.
I've also worked with what is it? Let me see who else.
The
Monife,
producer for that? Mm?
Monife in the UK. I've worked
Oh,
with a vocalist called Athena in the Philippines.
yeah,
I've also worked with in South Africa. There's a vocalist called Abelo. We have a song coming out. It's part of the EP that's coming out on the 29th called Groove
yeah.
Motion. Yeah.
That's
It's pretty fun
beautiful.
because we have to work over the internet. So a lot of the times I haven't even met them. We only talk over Zoom and Instagram and WhatsApp.
Yeah. But that's a way to go because right now this is a global village. You know, the internet really gets to simplify. For example, such an opportunity here to interview you. You know, we have not met in person, but really quite it's interesting that we are able to do this even through networking, you know, digitally. But let me get back into just getting to understand more about your music. So, what do you look for when you're choosing an artist to collaborate with? What do you quite look for, or what do you look for when you what characteristics or what do you look for when you're looking for an artist to collaborate
So I'm very open to genre types. I think the
with?
biggest thing for me is that I need to love your voice. So if
Yeah,
I'm hitting you up, I'm hitting you up because I listened to something and I was like,
yeah,
ooh, that would sound great on something I'm doing or something I'm writing. The
yeah,
other thing is consistency. Like
yeah,
if you can't be consistent with communication and deadlines, then I don't normally think it's worth the work. So a lot of the people
yeah,
that I do work with are people who have like established a working relationship with. They keep time, they keep communicating, and it makes
yeah,
sure the songs come in time and as best as possible.
yeah. And that's quite something because some people sometimes you find that you have an artist who wants to work with you, but when you look at the work ethic and the consistency, and also maybe some other elements, you will find the value might not be as much when it comes to the output. But talking about your music, I have realized that you are quite a multi-talented instrumentalist. How many instruments can you play?
I play two. I
Yeah.
play keyboard and I play guitar, but it is also I also play a bit of bass.
Oh, okay. That's quite interesting because when it comes to the music, when it comes to kind of a progression that we have seen in the industry right now, there is more uptake for live music than maybe perhaps playback. You know, the conventional. Sometimes if you go to events and you find them playing playback of the song and the artist just to lip sync.
Yeah,
But
I'm
for
not
you,
a
I think
fan of that.
how have you experienced being at performing in South Africa and also in Nairobi? Tell us a bit about some of the places that you performed at.
Performing in Nairobi, and oh, it's been such a long time.
Yeah.
But it was nice. It was enjoyable. I was doing more of accompanying, so I would play guitar for the artists we were working with at the time. We had a small music collective called Rosie at Work, so we
Mm,
were kind of doing something with that.
mm,
With South Africa, I've had the chance to perform my songs. I've noticed that they love Swahili. Like the Swahili songs for them slap the hardest. Like it doesn't matter which song. As soon as we switch into Swa, it's beautiful.
yeah.
I have had the chance to perform at the National Arts Fest in South Africa. We actually won a
Yeah.
Standard Bank Ovation Award. We
Mm,
performed under Basic City. I performed at New York Cafe. I performed at the University of the Free State.
mm,
Um, and well, just a few other locations around the city.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting because I think I understand from your list, from those particular places you mentioned, it seems like when you compare South Africa and Kenya, typically where we are at in terms of the music industry, I know that South Africa is quite far ahead because the uptake of music and but for you, how does the two places compare, Kenya and South Africa in terms of the entertainment industry?
I would say, I mean, South Africa is definitely bigger. The industry is more developed.
Mm,
But I have to give props to Kenya where like I can see the growth. And I think one thing South Africa has over Kenya, and I'm not saying it's being done well because there is issues of execution and mismanagement. There is
yeah,
government support, so there's funding. There is
yeah,
more non-government funding as well. So there is a somewhat pool of capital for some
mm,
artists to access. They also have a bigger consumer economy, so people are more
mm,
willing to buy tickets for shows, and there is a bigger appeal of local music, so it's
okay,
easier to make money as an artist. I think Kenya, we're growing.
yeah,
The artists are doing a lot, which
mm.
is great. I think what we need is supporting infrastructure and supporting institutions to kind of just help establish what is already being made.
I agree. I agree because when you look at also in terms of a supporter right here in Kenya, you'll find that there's a bit of a gap. There's a bit of a gap in terms of support and funding. There's a bit of a gap with that. In South Africa, I understand there is a National Arts Council, and
Mm.
which is quite active in terms of backing up our projects. And even when it comes to like sponsors, corporate sponsors like maybe Old Mutual and others like that, I've seen them being quite active in South Africa than they are in Kenya, for example. But anyhow, we shall be taking a break. Let's enjoy this particular jam by M. Rumbi. Remember, this is the Expo Show live right here with our guest M. Rumbi, and this is a wonderful song that he have done, which is featuring Monife. The name of the jam is Warm. We shall be jamming to this particular one, and then we shall get back into the conversation with our guest for today. He goes for the name M. Rumbi, one of the most talented, multi-talented artists in Kenya and South Africa. And this jam is known as Warm Jam. Yes, that's a little bit of a drama known as a warmed, and it's quite a jamming. I don't know, Mrumbi, if you're a big fan of this particular show on Capital known as The Lounge. I think
Yes.
your vibe actually also falls, that particular song, the vibe falls in that particular category of a neo soul kind of a groove. You know, just listen to the song and you just want to hear more of the song. And I think Monifa is also quite talented. You know, her vocals, they just so wonderful. It sounds like, I don't even remember Tiamutai Sage, the lady known as
Yes, yes, yes. I
Sage.
remember her.
Also you would also have a wonderful project with Tiamutai, or maybe perhaps maybe in future, who knows. But let me ask you about your creative process. You know, tell us a little bit about your creative process, and what are some of these topics that you like to write mostly on?
So some of my previous projects are the last project I did was called See Me Reimagined, which was me taking a project I released in 2020 and
Yeah.
remixing. So I took some of the tracks, I got
Mm.
some new features, I did some new production, some new mixing and mastering, and it was me kind of cutting off. I used to do spoken word and rap under M Rumbi, and I kind of
Yeah.
put that under another artist name.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that. I have a project coming up called Groove Motion, which is an Afro soul project dropping on the 29th. And I think earlier in the year, I did a project called Just Another. What was it called? Something I can't
Not,
remember. Something June.
not,
It was
is it not just that? Not all that, not all that, sorry, not all that. What's
oh,
the other one?
not all that. In 2021, I dropped Not All That, which is kind of like almost like a future soul slash hip hop type of thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I also did a single. I dropped a two-track single called More or Less on
Mm.
Spotify, which was I think it's actually almost 200,000 streams in total now, which was very exciting to me.
That's quite impressive. I think your discography is really quite something. You know, for some artists, for me, I do know that if you can play an artist's music, maybe perhaps when you're traveling on a maybe an hour's journey and you jam into their songs back to back, then I think that is when you know they are really quite solid. And I think
Thank
that
you,
is
thank you.
also M Rumbi. But let me ask you about your current project that you're supposed to be dropping quite soon, and tell us a little bit about that and what can people expect from that, and also maybe perhaps where can people find that particular one.
Alright, dope. So I said Groove Motion. It's supposed to be called Groove Mosaic. Cool. So it is a 5-track EP, and
Yeah.
it initially started as a challenge by one of my colleagues. He was like, "Hey man, do you want to try and do something that's more Afro centric in terms of sound? So like Afro soul, Afro pop, Afro beat." And I started working on some songs, and I slowly put together a project.
Yeah.
Now the sounds are very different, but also kind of very much the same. Like you can definitely hear the Afro percussion in it, but you can also hear Rumbi, like the specific chord choices or instrument choices. And for me, it was very cool to kind of blend those two things. One of the things I learned from the project is I don't think there's any music I wouldn't like. I just need to find the right song. I just need to find the right song to fall in love with a genre.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how I started falling in love more with the Afro rhythm genre. We've dropped 2 singles. One of them is called Gira Gira, which was with an artist in Lagos, Nigeria, and we have another one coming up this Friday called Ituba, which is
Yeah.
with a artist from Gauteng in South Africa.
Mm.
And then 2 weeks from that, 29th of December, we will be dropping the full project. We will have the pre-save link out soon, but you can
Yeah.
pre-save Ituba in the meantime. Just search for M Rumbi anywhere and everywhere.
Okay, that's quite wonderful. For people who want to look up the music, please make sure you do so. Please make sure you also share the music by M. Rumi right here, because as for people who do say that the music is a wonderful music, I would say it's classy music. When even you listen to jazz music, there's that particular element of it has it's quite dope. But I think that is what people should expect from that particular project. And also on Spotify, I think that is the main platform where people can
Yes,
mostly
yes. Spotify is the
listen.
main place.
Yeah, Spotify. I think that is quite wonderful. But of course, also for bookings, how can people reach you for bookings as we get winding up the interview? How can people reach you for
Bookings that you can email me at ahadi
yeah,
inc01 at gmail.com. So that's ahadi inc01 at gmail.com. You can send all specifics there.
yeah,
We're open to doing international gigs. We just need to sort out funding for that. Really, it's all
yeah?
about bringing good music to the people.
Yeah, I think, and also, of course, good music is quite expensive. I understand. When I have interacted with many artists, and some artists think that you just get a beat someplace and then go to the studio and do the good music is quite expensive. I can tell
It
you that
really
for
is. It really is.
it's really quite expensive. But we are grateful to have you on the show on that particular interview. And maybe perhaps as right now, what will be your parting shot for your message to your fans and people that have supported you, maybe perhaps from day one, or people who just discovered you the other day?
For the people who just discovered me, definitely check out my discography. I feel like I always have at least one song you can
Yeah,
fall in love with. If you don't find one, DM me. Tell me I didn't
yeah,
find one. I'll be like, ah, no, you're
yeah,
not looking hard enough. And for the people who have been listening to me, your support
yeah,
means the most. I
mm,
really do not discount it. I do not forget it.
yeah,
It is reminded in every day when I see my figures on Spotify, when I
mm,
see that people are listening to my music in like all over the world.
mm,
It started with you guys, and it's
mm.
continuing with you guys and just growing from there.
Yeah, I think that is quite something because at the end of the day, if someone checks out your discography and doesn't even like one song, then they should be doubting their taste in music. they
Man,
should be doubting, they should be doubting their taste in music because I know what you've been up to and the kind of music that you're making, and I would really just like to say that it's incredible, and you're actually doing the most. Thank you so much, and just want to thank you for taking the time. I understand that you're quite busy. You had a session. I don't know if you're through with the session or you're getting back to session, but just want to wish you prosperity and success in all your endeavors. Making good music. Please make sure you're keeping at it. Please make sure you also, linking up with us also more on the socials.
it's definitely.
You can also drop us the social. It's Rumbi on TikTok and Instagram, and you can drop us the social
And
links.
I'll definitely do that. It's m.rumbi, but we can, as you said, there's probably going to be a written article, so we can make sure that I'll send those details through so you can put them there.
Yeah, and that is what it is. Thank you so much to everyone that has joined us on the show for today. We never take your company for granted, and we are always appreciative of your support right here. In case you want to book M Room before a show, the email is right there, hadi inc01 at gmail.com, and maybe perhaps you get to converse more and arrange for that. He is open to international bookings as well, which is wonderful. And I also hope to see you performing in Nairobi. I think we could work
Man,
on getting our gig together, maybe sometime
fingers
soon.
crossed, fingers
Yeah,
crossed. But thank you very
yeah,
much for having me.
yeah.
Platforms like these are really what help indie artists such as myself grow. So shout out to you and what you're doing, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we shall be ending with this particular one, which is Penzi, featuring Nawekulo. Till next time, much peace and love. I want to wish everyone a happy and a productive rest of the day. That has been an interview with M. Rumbi right here on the Expression Live. Check out the jams on YouTube and Spotify as well. Thank you so much. For now, it's signing out. Go ahead.